Have you ever stopped and wondered how the apps you use every single day, from Amazon to Netflix, are actually built? I'm not talking about the code or the nerdy commands, but the real journey, from a simple idea to this massive thing running on your screen. Look, it's easy to get lost in all the tech jargon out there, so this explainer is for you. We're going to focus on the why before we even think about touching the how.
Okay, so let's dive right in with the biggest question of them all. When you click a button on an app, what is really happening behind the curtain? It feels like magic, right? But it's actually a pretty beautiful, logical process, and we're going to unpack it together. And here is the absolute most important thing to get right from the start. Real software, the good stuff, it doesn't begin with some fancy tool or complicated technology. All of that comes way later. Every great application in history started with one simple thing, a real-world problem that somebody needed to solve.
So to understand that solution, we first need to look at how software really starts. Let's just forget all the complexity for a second, because at its heart, every single application you've ever used is made of just three fundamental parts, and they all work together in, well, perfect harmony.
First up, you have the front end. This is pretty simple. It's everything you see and touch. The buttons you click, the pages you scroll through, all the forms you fill out. It's the visual part of the app that lives right there on your device. Then, working behind the scenes, we have the backend. Now this is the application's brain. It's the invisible engine that's doing all the heavy lifting. It processes your requests, it applies all the rules, and it figures out what's supposed to happen next. It doesn't have a pretty face, it just thinks.
And finally, you've got the database. You can think of this as the application's long-term memory. Every single piece of important information, your user profile, your shopping cart, your messages to a friend, it's all stored right here, just waiting for the backend to come and grab it or update it.
So, we've got our three main parts, the front end, the back end, and the database. But how do they actually talk to each other? Well, let's trace the amazing journey of just a single click to see this dance in action.
This whole process is so cool because it really demystifies what's happening in milliseconds. So you click. The first thing your browser has to do is figure out where the application actually lives on the internet. It uses something called DNS, which is kind of like the internet's giant phone book, to look up the server's address. Once it knows where to go, it sends off an HTTP request, basically a formal message asking to either get or send some data. The backend gets this message, thinks about it, and if it needs to, it'll talk to the database to save or retrieve information. And finally, the backend sends an HTTP response back to you, and poof, your browser renders the result on your screen. That right there is the heart of how the web works.
Now, that simple, elegant flow, it works perfectly, at first. But what happens when your little app becomes a huge success? Well, this is the turning point, the moment where all that beautiful simplicity starts to crack and break under pressure.
And this comparison just shows it perfectly. On day one, with maybe just you as a user, everything's a dream. The code is clean, it's easy to manage, you can fix things by hand, no problem. But fast forward to day 100. Now you've got 100,000 users, and suddenly you are drowning in bugs, servers are crashing left and right, and you have this horrifying realization that doing things manually just doesn't work anymore. Welcome to the chaos of success. And this chaos, it leads to some very real, very painful problems. Your users expect the app to be up and running 24/7. New users are flooding in by the thousands. Bugs can't wait a week anymore. They have to be fixed now. Your poor servers start buckling under the heavy load, and trying to update everything by hand? Yeah, that becomes a guaranteed recipe for total disaster. This isn't just an inconvenience. This is real operational pain.
It is precisely this pain, the chaos of trying to grow, and the absolute failure of doing things the old, manual way that created the need for a completely new way of thinking. This is exactly why DevOps was born.
And this right here is the single most important idea to take away from all of this. DevOps isn't about learning a specific tool or memorizing a command. It is a philosophy, it's a culture. It's a whole set of practices that came about as a direct solution to the pain of building and running software when you get big.
So what does this solution actually do? Well, it brings four critical things to the table. First, automation, so that all those repetitive, easy-to-mess-up tasks are handled by machines, not by people. Then reliability, to engineer the system so the app just stays up 24/7. Next is speed, so you can get new features and bug fixes out to you users quickly and safely. And finally, scale, which gives the whole system the ability to handle a massive number of users without even breaking a sweat. Okay,
So as we wrap up this journey, from a simple idea all the way to a complex, thriving system, there is one core lesson that's underneath everything we've talked about. And that brings us right here to the biggest lesson of this entire explainer. Before you ever type a single command or write a single line of configuration, you have to understand why these tools and practices even exist. They're all solutions to those very real problems of scale, reliability, and speed. I promise you, if you understand the why, learning the how becomes so much easier and way more meaningful.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. We've just uncovered the fundamental why behind all of modern software development. And the real question is, now that you understand the problem that needed solving, what problems are you going to solve?